Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Tuesday. Trivia Tuesday. It's Trivia Tuesday, Mara.
No, it's not. It's just Tuesday.
We're working on
Ruby
creating
Tuesday.
Trivia Tuesday, but I need some more trivia. I did European cities yesterday for my family. European cities. Name the country, I'll name the city. I have a confession to make.
Oh, it's confessional Tuesday.
Everyone's on the edge of their seat. Kaustubha's my priest.
Don't say it.
I had a triple snoozer today.
Oh God.
Triple snoozer. It's quite embarrassing.
Evil.
Alarm was set for 3:30, and I just went snooze, snooze, and
Triple
snooze.
snooze.
The man who criticizes sleep. I'm the one leading the rebellion against the sleep movement, practically single-handedly. Who was I with? I was with David Charles Wilson. He was like, no, sleep is good.
Well, you need it today, apparently.
Sleep is, but it's, yeah. So I hit snooze 3 times. No, it was not due to I needed sleep. I had plenty of sleep. It was weakness.
Okay.
It was
That's
my
a
own
different
weaknesses.
thing. That's a different thing, yeah.
It was laziness. It was lethargy.
All right.
So I'm just sharing that, coming clean. With
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Did you eat late in the day the night before?
No. Mara's got me. I broke it. I went a half hour over because I didn't eat my first meal till 4. So I broke it at like 7:30. But me and Mara are on a cleanse.
Oh, you're on the cleanse.
A little bit of a cleanse. A little bit of it. I'm trying to keep it low. Mara says when I do a cleanse, I get arrogant. And so
That wasn't exactly what I said.
a little true. I start thinking I'm much better than everybody. It shows how like you do anything for your personal health, you can turn it into like how great you are. Maya's tricky, and the Bhagavatam talks about this all the way because was that you I was talking to, Mara, about mystical powers yesterday?
Yeah.
We're just saying, just like if I had 1 or 2, I've been playing this one out. Like, why not? Like, if you think about Christianity, a lot of Christians will say, well, he did rise from the dead. He did like cast out the spirit into the pig. He did feed the many with like 1 loaf of bread. He did, turn the water into wine.
Yeah.
It's like all their faith is based on a mystical power. A lot of their faith is based on mystical power.
For some people.
Well, I'm feeling like if I just had 1 mystical power, I could do so much better for the Bhakti movement.
But you're not Jesus, you see. You could be tempted.
I could be tempted by the... Well, it's
to misuse those powers.
Well, I could see how people with a mystical power, like in India, it's very popular. I don't know if you've heard this, but people have some mystical city and then they claim to be God.
Yeah.
This is very, very common.
You could be doing that. There's kind of a way to do it where you don't actually claim it. You just let all your followers claim it.
Claim it for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not God. Oh no, not me. Are you kidding?
But you know what Prabhupada said? You know what Prabhupada said his miracle was? Because people would say, "Can you do these things?" Right?
Yeah.
You know what he said?
I make hippies into happies.
Yeah, more or less that you know, basically he said, you know, I just share this and it changes people's lives, you know. So he wasn't taking credit, but he was just saying, you know, if you can share this as it is without changing it, but you know, then it has a magical effect. The Krishna miracles are happening all the time.
They really are.
Okay, so then you do have that potency.
I had a mundane Krishna miracle yesterday. Oh man, I can't think of it right now.
I don't want
It was something completely mundane. I was like, that's a miracle. All right. Taking off my sadhu robe. All right, let's dive into the sweet honey sugar pot.
You got to come up with something different.
I change it up every morning.
Well, you don't. You keep going to that sticky sugar pot.
Sugar, sweet sap. Narayanam naraskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesh vabhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Agyanatmrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Midatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text 21. Okay, I'm just going to dive in, Prabhu.
You want to give a little, just quick little.
You give a quick little.
Okay, well, we have again, Sukadeva Goswami's been asked to speak, and he's going through a series of verses that are bringing his mind to Krishna, because he knows that if you want to speak spiritual truth, there's no material qualification. It's being connected, right? And so in today's verses, there'll be a bit of a theme, right? That to connect with that spiritual knowledge, that's a lamp that's lit from within, right? And it requires a spiritual touch. And in order to enter into that, it requires the right attitude, and it requires the right process. And so we'll be hearing about that, even in this verse, both of those.
Claire Weatherly wrote on the board, she was driving and listening to it when I said sweet honey pot yesterday, and she drove by Honey Pot Lane. I mean, you can't even plan that if you wanted to. You know what I mean? That is a Krishna miracle. It really is. Right?
Yes.
Mara, say something. Just nod.
Yes, it's a Krishna miracle.
Come on, you can't. How could you plan that? Okay. It is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who gives liberation by thinking of his lotus feet every second, following in the footsteps of authorities. The devotees in trance can see the absolute truth. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their own whims. May the Lord be pleased with me. The learned mental speculators.
Yeah, even they may be learned, right? It doesn't necessarily get you connected. So this is saying, you know, by thinking of his lotus feet, it has to do with one's consciousness, and that's a consciousness of humility, right? When it's saying the thinking of the lotus feet.
I mean, one of the benefits of the whole Vedic paradigm of spiritual paths is we have these forms of divinity that we can meditate on. It's a big benefit. It's a great benefit because it holds the mind, and it otherwise we're here of this God's why? Because the sages have had darshan. The sages have had actually witnessed also. And it gives us sort of direction in our neophyte stages. Otherwise, we'd be totally lost. I mean, what was your concept? I mean, did you believe in God?
Prior to finding...
When you were a little kid?
Yeah.
Like, what was your conception? Like,
I can't say it was very developed. I didn't really know.
I know. You're just supposed to, it's like, I was that mental speculator, just sort of speculating.
Okay. Well,
Not
it brought
that
you to the
learning.
right place eventually. But yeah, but here let's read a little of this commentary. See what Prabhupada has to say. But I just want to point out that in the verse it says, it's by thinking of the lotus, it's by the consciousness of humility, following in the foot, and then that's the attitude. And then the process by following in the footsteps of authorities. In other words, it's handed down, right? You get in line and you get lined up with that. So there's an attitude and there's a process. The next verse will have a lot to do with the process. But here in the commentary, Srila Prabhupada mentions the Lord being the Lord of intelligence in everyone. That's what we read about yesterday. There's that word, was it diapati, the Lord of intelligence, right? The Lord being the Lord of intelligence in everyone, even in the non-devotee, favors his devotee with proper intelligence, so that automatically the pure devotee is enlightened with the factual truth about the Lord and his different energies, right? It's like a lamp being lit from within, from the Lord within the heart. The Lord is revealed not by one's speculative power or by one's verbal jugglery.
Love that.
Right. Yeah.
Verbal jugglery.
It's a lot of times, a lot of books that I've seen that deal with Vedanta, that comment on, the yoga tradition. A lot of times I look at it, I'm saying, this person is just juggling words. It's just like vague words being used. And if you ask a straightforward question, you get this
very vague answer.
Get this very vague answer, and just and a lot of it I see is word jugglery.
Give me a straight answer. Give me a straight answer. Give me a straight answer, please. If you don't know it, how about if you don't know it, just say I don't know it. But instead, they want to be very vague and very sweet and loving and smooth.
Yeah,
and it leaves us more confused than when we started.
Yeah, but there's something about it that people can be gullible to that kind of thing, I think, right? Oh yeah, that's like spiritual talk,
Yeah.
But it's not demanding anything of me, right? It's like that vague stuff, right? Give me straight in, hey, you've got to, start doing this and stop doing that.
Stop drinking all that alcohol, please.
People they don't necessarily want that. So the Lord is revealed not by one's speculative power, but by one's verbal jugglery over the absolute truth. Rather, he reveals himself to the devotee when he is fully satisfied with the devotee's service attitude. Right? It's that service attitude. What was it that Vaisheshika Prabhu said the other day? He said, adopt a service attitude. Was that what it was? Remember when we talked about Shipton? You got it, Mary?
It was a service mind.
A service mind.
Service
right?
mind.
Yeah.
I'm here to serve.
I'm here to serve. Just try to see life like that. And that attitude starts to open up, right? That lamp starts to get lit from within, because there's a logic to it, that if we want to live separately from God, we have to be an illusion. But if we want to serve, well, then we want truth, and that truth begins to light up. Right? So Prabhupada continues, he says, Sukadeva Goswami is not a mental speculator or compromiser of the theory of as many ways, as many conclusions. Right? He said, no, it's not that any way you get the same result. Rather, he prays to the Lord only, invoking his transcendental pleasure. I want to please you. Right? This whole series of verses ends with him saying, may he be pleased with me. He says, that is the way of knowing the Lord. Okay, so the attitude was mentioned here, especially in this commentary. All right? Takes the right attitude.
Attitude goes a long way in life.
It certainly does. What was it that we heard that Vaisheshika said? The attention, attitude, and application. 3 keys. He'll be back. We should mention again, right? Vaisheshika.
Yeah. When's his class? Tomorrow?
Yeah, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time.
Entering the 4th dimension, Raghunath. That dimension beyond the mind and senses and matter. What do you think? That got your attention?
You're all frozen.
Oh, really? No, we're not frozen.
Sorry. I'm looking at you. What are they saying?
I said,
All right,
are you ready to enter the fourth dimension tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm in. Text 22. May the Lord, who is the beginning of creation, amplified by the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart, and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, please be with me.
Why don't you read that again?
May the Lord, who in the beginning of creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart, and inspired him with full knowledge of creation. Okay, he taught Brahma how to create.
He did?
Like how to... Right.
Right. They taught him from within the heart.
Appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma. Be pleased with me. Yeah, this is inspired within. Just like all these little animals, they know what to do as soon as they're born.
Oh yeah, the turtles, remember?
The turtles, right?
Yeah.
Lord Brahma knows exactly what to do. He's inspired within the heart.
Well, do you know a verse that is directly referencing? It's in the Bhagavatam.
It's in the Bhagavatam? I don't know it.
It's the very first verse of the Bhagavatam.
Oh.
Tene, but Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, and the Hridaya, right? Into the heart of who is the original living entity. So that it says, actually, if you look at this verse, right? We were speaking yesterday, and it's kind of continuing that theme today, that like what we know, even materially, what to speak of spiritually, we tend to think that we gain that knowledge on our own. We go out and we acquire it.
Right.
But what we really know and what we really understand is revealed to us. And so it may be revealed, it may be covered. And so therefore we do have experiences where we say, oh, why didn't I think of that? I wish I would have said that. But it wasn't revealed to us in that moment. You gave examples of, was it Kumbhakarna? And I gave the example of Keshava Kashmiri, right?
There was a block. There was a mental block. He couldn't think of it. It was like, why? He's also very intelligent. Kumbhakarna was like incredibly renounced, very, very smart. Just couldn't think. And then he got this benediction, whatever you want. You could have whatever you want. He blurted out the wrong thing. And he was like, what have I done? What have I said? I think a lot of us have been there on stage or in an important presentation and just like,
or even just in our own relationships sometimes we're like, oh, I wish I would have said that. I wish I wouldn't have said that. Another example I think of. What?
Just like with Radha Swami, I'm thinking of all the dumb things I've said. Like, wow, what was I thinking?
But I was also thinking of Karna, in the Mahabharata, where he got that curse, remember?
He got that curse where he couldn't recall. He couldn't recall the mantras.
Right, when he would need them most. Right, so it's like, okay, well now I'll just make a conscious effort to remember it. But like, no, he couldn't. Because ultimately Krishna's within that heart. He lights the lamp. That's, I think we referenced that yesterday too in text 10:11. Tesham ekam nupar, what is it? Tesham eva nukam partam. That he, I am the, aham agyana jamtama. Nasyam yatma bhava shto gyana dipena bhasvata. That he lights that lamp within the heart, right? To show them special mercy.
There it is.
I dwelling in their hearts. Destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Right? So that very first verse of Bhagavatam, it has both of those elements in it. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavye, that it is he only who first impart this Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living entity, so he can reveal it from within. And then it says, Muyanti Yat Surya Tejo Vardi Mridam. By him, even the great sages and the demigods are placed into illusion, right? and then it says, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen in water, like mirages.
You know, it's so interesting, this whole theory of the GPS is already inside us.
Yeah.
There's already the information inside us. And it's this process of like hearing chanting on a regular basis. It's like coming in a foreign radio channel, and we're just like sort of, the hearing and chanting is fine tuning that dial to hear that, to get reception from that station. And then the instructions comes, turn left, turn right, choose this, don't choose that, let go of this, embrace this, walk straight ahead. Do not look back, walk straight ahead. It's already inside us.
Like a little turtle.
And I'm just not tuned in. And to the degree that I'm tuned, and sadhana bhakti, here we go, extending on this analogy. Sadhana bhakti is the practice of just almost mechanically going through the instructions of the GPS. And eventually we start to hear it. And then all of a sudden the GPS is what's directing us. What do you think about that analogy?
Love it. I love it. It's that lamp gets lit, right?
Yeah.
The darkness is dispelled. And especially this is important with spiritual knowledge, you know. Let's read a little bit of what Prabhupada says here, shall we?
Yeah. Go.
Okay. So this is text 22 comment. Did we read that, right? Text 22? No, have we? No, maybe we did. Yes, we did. Okay. So here's commentary from that. And this deals with the process, right? We said there's an attitude that I have this humility and that I'm a servant, that attitude is what opens the door to this lamp being lit. But then there's also the process, how it's handed down. So he says, the Vedic sounds recorded in symbolic expressions, you know, whether that be in audio, like the syllables that we speak, or in the characters that are on a written page, right? Vedic sounds recorded in symbolic expressions cannot be understood by anyone within the universe. It's like it's locked up. Unless,
you got to unlock them.
Yeah. Unless and until one is inspired by the vibration of supernatural sound, which descends in the chain of disciplic succession from the Lord to Brahma, and from Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyas, and so on. Actually, he almost completed that chain that we're seeing here right now. Like, we're going to read next chapter about how Krishna inspires Brahma. And then next chapter, we see how Brahma speaks the same knowledge to Narada. And then we know that we read earlier in the Bhagavatam how Narada is the guru of Vyas, remember, back in the first canto. And then Vyas is the father and guru of Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami spoke the same knowledge to the sages in front of Maharaj Pariksit. Sutta Goswami was there. He brought that to the sages in Naimisharanya, and it's handed down unchanged step by step. So again, he says that even if you read the characters on the page, even if someone speaks it to you, it's not necessarily opened up. It's not necessarily understood. It's handed down in this chain. And and then he says, no mundane scholar can translate or reveal the true import of the Vedic mantras or hymns. They cannot be understood unless one is inspired or initiated by the authorized spiritual master. The original spiritual master is the Lord himself, and the succession comes down through the sources of parampara, which means this disciplic succession. As clearly stated in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Mara, what is that verse?
I caught her off guard.
Yeah,
She's like sitting there dreaming of pakoras. What can I make? What should I put in that pakora batter today?
Evam parampara praptam imam majarsyo vidhu. It mentions that in the 4th chapter of the Gita. So unless one receives the transcendental knowledge from the authorized parampara, one should be, now this is heavy, this can sound heavy when Prabhupada says this, right? One should be considered useless. Nishpala mataha. Oh man. Even though one may be greatly qualified in the mundane advancements of arts and science. So Prabhupada quotes this here. He's saying, I'm not saying they're useless. There's this verse, right? Nishpala mataha, that they are nishpala. No, there's no fruit.
There's no fruit of their work.
There's no fruit. So that's I think it was last week or so that we were speaking about this when we're talking about mantras, that there's an important verse, sampradaya vihina ye mantraste nishpala mataha, that unless the mantra is received in the disciplic succession, it bears no fruit. And we spoke that how that has both, like what do we call it? Transrational,
Transrational. That's
meaning.
your word of the week.
Yeah. But also it has its practical understanding that, just like say I got a computer, but I'd never used a computer before in my life, right? And someone gave it to me. Well, unless I know how to use it, it's useless to me. It's as good as not having a computer, right? Someone's got it.
Yeah, it's me and my computer skills.
Sometimes
I
you
might as
feel
well
like
not
that.
even have a computer. Can't even figure out how to use Google Suite.
Okay. So and imagine if you knew nothing of computers and you just got that thing and you wouldn't know how to even start it up.
Or if you've never seen it, what to speak of, if you've never seen a computer, you open it up.
Yeah.
You don't know even how to turn it on or that can turn on.
Or how to program it or how to connect it to a modem, all these things. You don't know anything about this unless you receive the instructions, and ideally from an instructor. Then it's as good as not having a computer at all. And so what this verse is saying, when it uses a heavy term like useless or no fruit, it means that if you have the mantra, but you haven't been instructed in how to access its power, and that means humility, and that means kindness, and that means, a certain type of faith and certain sentiments, and, then you don't access the power of that mantra. And so Prabhupada's quoting that same verse here in the context of understanding knowledge, that we can just, it's not just from reading books or hearing any teacher, but it comes from having the right attitude and hearing from the right teacher who's representing it, who comes in that disciplic line with the very clear intention that I'm not making this up myself. I have no aspiration to be recognized as a great thinker.
Yeah.
All I want to be is a good representative. I want to present it as it is.
It's not a snobby thing.
Yeah.
But that's how the tradition descends. And you can see it from anybody who's new to it, stumbles upon it within the first even a few days. They'll have so much a greater depth than even people who've been practicing yoga or metaphysics or Vedic arts, and they'll be able to sort things out. It's an insight that even someone who's been around a while doesn't have, like a child who climbs a tree and can understand, oh, we're not lost in the forest. The entrance to the forest is right over there, even though his father might be in the forest down at the bottom of the tree, completely lost.
Is that a real life example? Is that something that happened?
No.
Like you're out there with Tarun or something, and where are we? Tarun, climb that tree.
I just start crying in the forest. Climb the tree, I'm lost. Yeah, but it's that insight that we get, and it's not because of our genius. It's because we're plugging in to an electric socket that's actually on. And so the newest person to bhakti can summarize, well, what's the goal of yoga? You people practicing yoga for 30 years, and if you ask them what the goal of yoga, they'll do like word jugglery, or they'll try to explain something. Well, I read in this book, or how old is yoga? I don't know. They'll come up with a number. You ask somebody who's been practicing bhakti for a little while, Mara, how old is yoga?
Eternal.
It's eternal. It's an eternal practice. Now, for most people who've not part of a parampara, they can't even, it's hard for them to even say it's an eternal practice because our parampara is mundane science. That's what we've heard from. And the idea of that the soul is eternal. Come on, human species started at this time. Agriculture started at this time, but we have a whole different paradigm that we are not like evolving, we are devolving, and there were civilized cultures previous to us, and that connection to God is an eternal practice, and yoga is the connection with God. Sometimes you've been asked, well, what is the goal of yoga? People say, well, connect to the mind and the body and the work. And it's very clear and spelled out, but we've just been hearing outside of this parampara.
Yeah, and even like these scholars, right? There are people that know these books in one sense better than we know them. You know, they know the Sanskrit, they know all the verses, they know the Upanishads, and they know all these things, but they don't actually understand any of it. You know, whereas the simplest person, you know, can just be introduced to it and get it, and then be transformed by it.
You want a funny example?
Okay.
The first Indianologists, you know, to study Indian teachings, I think a lot were from England. A lot of them were to like disprove the efficacy of the tradition, as well as like where it fit in chronologically with Christianity.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Max Mueller, but it was one of these early ones. When they read the translation, so they started studying Sanskrit. They read the translation of Paramahamsa. Now,
Super
if you
Swan.
follow, right? No, the supreme. They called it they're calling their great yoga masters the Great Goose. That's how they translated it, the Great Goose. So the translation, it can be a great goose, but it's actually a name for a person who is like a swan, like the greatest of swans. And why a swan? Because a swan, according to parampara, has the ability to extract milk from a pond. So if you were to pour a glass of milk into a dirty pond, a swan could suck the milk out almost magically. I don't know.
Right out of a dirty pond.
Right out of a dirty pond, just suck that milk out. And that is an analogy for great souls who can live in a crazy world and extract the sweetness and the essence of the life from a bizarre world, from a crazy culture. So when you hear that in parampara, a Paramahamsa, that makes so much sense. If you were to hear that, if you were just trying to speculate, understand, I'm studying Sanskrit, I've gone to India, I've studied the culture, you're not allowed in. You don't get the imports of those, of these. We hear everything.
It's not unlocked. It's not unlocked.
We haven't unlocked the bundles.
Okay.
Sacred bundles.
And you know, and even if you did know that, like if someone provided you with that reference, still, it doesn't mean that your heart has changed or you understand how to live according to it and benefit from it, because that lamp is not lit, you know?
I remember when I was younger, I'd be like reading spiritual books. And okay,
what were you reading, Raghunath? What were you reading? And at what age?
Everything. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, the Essene Bibles, the Dhammapada, you know.
This is like as a teenager.
Siddhartha. Yeah. Come on.
Tell me about Jonathan Livingston Seagull. What did you take from that, Raghunath?
I can't remember. I'm flying up, touching the sky, burning my wings. I can't remember.
Okay.
But
it's a bird thing. I remember birds.
There were birds involved.
Okay.
And one of them's name was Johnny. But my point, now I lost my point, man.
You're saying when you're a teenager, you're reading all these books.
You read all these books, and I just feel like saying someone to tell me, listen, don't stop doing this. Stop being a slave to your tongue, your belly, your genitals. Chant a little every day. You know, control your mind. Say, give me some practical thing to do. Give me something to tell me what to do.
Right? Yeah.
What? I don't just want to hear a great story. I want a lifestyle. Give me a lifestyle. That's what I wanted, and no one would say it. Give me a lifestyle.
You're right, and you got it though. You asked for it. You got
it. Now I was like, you gave me too much of a lifestyle.
Now you're guilty about hitting the snooze button.
Well, you know, I tell you, Krishna consciousness, the whole thing it makes so much sense. It answers all these questions we always had.
All right. Let's just
something. It gives you something to do. You know what to do, and you know what not to do. Right?
Right. Yeah. You got
to know. We know when we're doing something wrong. We're like, why am I doing this?
What to accept and what to reject.
Huh?
What to accept, what to reject.
Yeah.
Any path requires that.
Any path requires that. And I feel like on a spiritual path, like no one will say, don't do this. They'll just say, well, they'll like you said earlier, they'll say anything but
vague stuff.
Yeah, just vague stuff.
Well, here's something straight for you, okay?
Yeah.
Prabhupada continues in this commentary, more about the attitude. He's saying Sukadeva Goswami is praying to the Lord by dint of being inspired from within by the Lord, so that he could rightly explain the facts and figures of creation as inquired by Maharaj Pariksit. A spiritual master is not a theoretical speculator like the mundane scholar, but is Shrotariyam Brahmanishtam. Right? It literally, it means that he's like, or they are learned in the Vedas, Shrotariyam Brahmanishtam, and firmly fixed, firmly devoted to the absolute truth in their lifestyle. So, right, that's from the Mundaka Upanishad. To understand things properly, one must humbly approach. This is such a great verse too, because it speaks to that attitude. To understand things properly, this is Tadvigyanartam Sagarum Eva Bigachet. That one must, this is an important verse in the Upanishads, one must approach a spiritual teacher, spiritual master to understand. And then it says Samit Pani, and you approach that guru carrying wood. You've heard that one before, Raghunath? Samit
Carrying
Pani.
wood.
You're carrying wood. And then it describes that what that guru is like, Shrotariyam Brahmanishtam, learning in the Vedas,
Right.
firmly devoted to the absolute truth. But that carrying wood, Samit Pani, means because the guru traditionally, right, these Vedic gurus, they would do every day, they would do a fire sacrifice, a ritual involving chanting mantras and lighting the fire, feeding the fire with ghee. You establish that fire as the mouth of Lord Vishnu, right? And then you make offerings of ghee and grain as part of a ritual to focus one's consciousness on the divine. So the disciple of the guru, they're assisting in the sacrifice. So they go out and they collect the wood. So it means you don't get this knowledge just by academic process, but it involves that service attitude, and that humility. Let me serve you. Nice, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is the magic thing to unlock the bundle.
Right.
It's service attitude.
Service attitude and the right process, right? All right. You want to read 23?
23. These are the big points. May the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enlivens the materially created bodies of the elements by lying down within the universe, and who in his Purusha incarnation causes living beings to be subjected to the 16 divisions of material modes, which are his generator. Please decorate my statements. Say what?
Well, first,
I'm going to give you a say what for that, Kaustubha.
First, again, let's just take note. He's saying, may he please decorate my statements. I don't have that power. I'm trying to reconnect. May he empower my speech. Now, Maharaj Pariksit, the king, is just asking me about creation. So he prays to that Lord of creation, right? The Supreme Personality of God, who enlivens the material created bodies, right? The bodies that we exist in, of the elements. He lies down within the universe. This will all be described in coming chapters. And who is the Purusha incarnation? Krishna expands into different Vishnu incarnations, they're called the Purusha incarnations, and causes a living being to be subjected to the 16 divisions of material modes. This is part of Sankhya philosophy, that you can divide the entire material world up into 24 elements. And the first 16 are earth, water, fire, air, ether. They're called the Mahabhutas, the gross material elements, those very tangible, touchable, seeable, hearable, elements. And then come the senses themselves, which is another 5. And the 6th sense is the mind. So now we're up to 11. And then there's 5 senses of action. So in Vedic philosophy, there's 5 senses of knowledge acquiring senses, the senses that we speak of, the hearing, seeing, etc. The 6th sense is the mind, because the mind is the center of the senses. It's the computer which the senses send all their information to. And then there's the senses of action, like the ability to speak, the ability to move, the ability to grip,
It's amazing how the Vedic teachings already have this stuff. Like,
it's all laid out.
It's already laid out. We like invented all this, the periodic table, and it's already been there. It's just from a different vantage point.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what it's meant by those 16 divisions. It's saying that he is the one. You asked about creation. Let me pray to that Lord who he remains in Goloka Vrindavan, engaged in his loving pastimes, Krishna, but he expands as the Purusha incarnations, the Mahavishnu, which lies down in the Mahavishnu, which is like kind of the soul of all all material creation.
Right.
From him come the universes, innumerable universes. He lies down again within those, and then instructs Brahma as the first living being within that universe. And then Brahma creates all the other bodies. He takes those material elements, he divides them into these divisions: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, the senses, etc. He creates that as the vehicles that we move through this world with. So he's praying to that being and saying, that being who did that creation, you asked me about creation, let me connect my mind with humility to that being who is the creator, and he's created it in this particular way. And so Prabhupada has some nice statements in this commentary to 23. He says, he says, such Vedic knowledge or dharma or religion is disseminated by authorities like Sukadeva Goswami because he is a humble, devotional servitor of the Lord who has no desire to become a self-appointed interpreter without authority. And so again, it's like the right process. I don't, I don't want to make a blanket statement or anything, but like in universities, so much of it is built on a professor has to establish himself by tearing others down, right? If I want to kind of establish myself as an authority in any particular field of study.
It's not even in the university. It's like anywhere in the workplace, anywhere. You just tear another person down to build yourself up.
Yeah. But it plays out in that academic realm where, you write a book where you defeat the previous theories and put forward your own, right? I need to put forward my own theory so that I can stand out and be established. But that's not this process. This process is like, I'm not trying to put forward my own theory. The truth is already there. I'm trying to represent it as it's been handed down. So he's saying, Sukadeva Goswami, he's obviously brilliant. He's about to speak, 16,000 incredible verses of poetry, with deep philosophy and social teachings and so much, rich with all of this information. But he's humble. He sees himself as a humble devotional servitor of the Lord who has no desire to become a self-appointed interpreter without authority. Where does the authority come from? By representing that person that you've heard it from, who's representing that person that you heard it from, that's ultimately coming from, the Guru and the Sadhu and the Shastra. So he says, that is the way of explaining Vedic knowledge, technically known as Parampara system, or the descending process. Now this is real nice. He says, the intelligent person can see without mistake that any material creation, whether one's own body or a fruit or a flower, cannot beautifully grow up without the spiritual touch, right? That there's a spiritual touch. We can see that spiritual touch in material creation in a flower and a fruit, right? We should be contemplating this when we eat a fruit, right? We should be amazed by the magic and the miracles that are there, that there's a spiritual touch. And similarly with the knowledge that we know or can explain, it comes by a spiritual touch, a lamp lit within. So he goes on, the greatest intelligent people of the world, or the greatest person of science, can present everything very beautifully only insofar as the spirit life is there, or in so much as the spiritual touch is there. Therefore, the source of all truths is the Supreme Spirit, and not gross matter, as wrongly conceived by the gross materialists, that you could say empiricists. Right? We get information from the Vedic literature that the Lord himself first entered the vacuum of the material universe, and thus all things gradually developed one after another. Similarly, the Lord is situated as a localized Paramatma in every individual being. Hence, everything is done by him very beautifully. I really love this. I think I may have shared this story before, but back before COVID,
Before COVID?
Before COVID, way back then.
That
I
is
was
sort of like the new
BC.
measurement of time.
Yeah, BC.
Post-COVID, pre-COVID.
Yeah. So I would host school, groups of school kids at the Bhakti Center. And it was really one of the most, fun, enlivening kind of things I could do,
Uncle Kaustubha.
Yeah, they're all great kids, And I don't know if it's my own bias, but I think New York kids, they grow up really smart, and they got really, you don't think so? You're like, what?
I think they grow up learning about stuff they shouldn't learn too quickly.
No, but they got good intelligence.
You can call it a type of intelligence.
It is, man. They're smart kids, and so I was explaining to them. I was doing a little slideshow, and explaining to them how, like, within the body there's the soul. The body is dead matter, and there's a soul within the body, and that soul gives life to the entire body. It makes it come alive, right? And so then as I was continuing to speak later, I was describing how the entire universe is kind of enlivened by God. And I just remember this kid said, like, God is like the soul of the universe, right? Just in the same way that the soul within the body animates the entire body, makes it come alive. It's a spiritual touch within a dead body, right? A dead body is like so unappealing, but that spiritual touch, the touch of the soul within the body, can make that body become the most beautiful, attractive, brilliant, wise, friendly, whatever. It's that spiritual touch that makes that body so attractive and so valuable. And so similarly, the Purusha avatars, Lord Vishnu lies down within the material realm, it comes alive. He creates universes, he lies down within those, it comes alive. And then Brahma creates all the material bodies, and because the soul and the Paramatma, the super soul within that body, it comes alive in a beautiful way. It's something to think about. And the yogis, they would look at the sun. When they see the sun and when they see it rise in the morning, they sit down to chant their Gayatri mantras. The first Gayatri mantra has to do with the sun, right? And how the sun is spreading its energies in the same way may we be in the way that the universe is enlivened by the sun. And they also think of the sun as the Paramatma, right? As Lord Vishnu lights up the entire universe. May the Lord within me, light me up. May I be lit up, right? Just again, going back to where we started in Bhagavad Gita, verse 10, 11, right? That to show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So as the sun dispels darkness, the Paramatma within can dispel darkness. And that spiritual touch is what makes all the difference.
Music.
Oh,
We're
5 minutes early.
Spot. We're not there.
Okay. All right, then let's keep reading. So he says, therefore, the source of all truths is the Supreme Spirit, and not gross matter, as wrongly conceived by the gross materialists. We get information from the Vedic literature by the Lord that the Lord himself first entered into the vacuum of the material universe, and thus all things gradually developed one after another. Similarly, the Lord is situated as localized Paramatma in every individual being. Hence, everything is done by him very beautifully. The 16 principal creative elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, sky, and the 11 sense organs, first developed from the Lord himself and were thereby shared by the living entities. Thus, the material elements were created for the enjoyment of the living entities. The beautiful arrangement behind all material manifestations is therefore made possible by the energy of the Lord, and the individual living entity can only pray to the Lord to understand it properly, right? It's all done, and my prayer is that, can I understand the world that I'm living in? Can I get a clear idea about what it's about and what my role in it is, what I'm doing here, and what I'm meant to learn, right? Since the Lord is the supreme entity, different from Sukadeva Goswami, the prayer can be offered to him. The Lord helps the living entity to enjoy material creation, but he's aloof from such enjoyment, right? He provides the material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether. He provides the senses of that bring in information, the senses that allow you to operate within the world. Now you can try to enjoy, right? But the Lord, it says he helps the living entity enjoy material creation, but he's aloof from such false enjoyment, right? The two birds sitting in the tree, one's trying to enjoy it and the other's aloof. Sukadeva prays for the mercy of the Lord, not only for being helped personally in presenting the truth, because he's speaking to Marsh Prickett, I need help to present the truth, but also for helping others whom he would like to speak. So he's saying that lamp, I've been asked to speak, I have an audience here. This transcendental knowledge doesn't take place without your spiritual touch, without your blessing, so that I might be able to speak and so that they may be able to understand. Please decorate my statements, with that spiritual touch. Boom, hit it. Go. There you go.
I always mute it to cue it up so I don't make noise, and then he stopped right there. Oh. Hey, if you're new to this and this whole thing sounds really sort of peculiar, interesting, funky, fantasy-like, relevant in your life, we say just give it a try. Just try it out. See how it works. Try it out like you're trying out a t-shirt or a suit of clothes. See how it fits. Practice chanting 1 round a day. If you chant 1 round a day, you get to be on Zoom. That's the access point to get in. Then Mara reveals the secret codes. Email Mara at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Make your oath to chant 1 round a day of japa. And then
actually, they don't ask you to do that when she gives you the codes, just so you don't freak anybody out there.
Well, Mara checks up on you, too. She come because she makes you give her address, and then she'll bang on your window. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We have a wonderful week in our Patreon party that goes on. Patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages is the way you can support our community-supported show. Thanks for everybody who joins us live. It means a lot to us. And thanks for all the others out there. We don't know you're out there, but let us know by writing into our Apple Podcast. Matter of fact, everybody on Zoom, if you haven't written on Apple Podcast, write your story today. Right after you get off the show, you get on Apple Podcast, get on your iPhone or whatever phone you have, and then write us a little note. I was reading all those notes yesterday. It was quite inspiring. I just like to hear people's story. Now, my favorite time of the day is when I dance in my chair. Hands in the air.